Hello, my name is Joe Strout, and this is my CS567 project, Space Folding in Virtual Reality. The project is motivated by the desire to use real walking to navigate a virtual space. The problem with walking is that you generally have a very limited physical space to do it in, requiring some means of compressing the virtual environment to fit into the physical play area. Various approaches to spatial compression have been proposed and are summarized here, but all of them still require a quite large physical space, with the possible exception of change blindness, and that one provides only a modest spatial gain of about 50%. Some techniques also restrict the user to certain predetermined paths. In comparison, the new space folding technique works in a physical space as small as 2 by 3 meters, allows for unlimited spatial gain, and it allows the user to navigate freely. The main drawback compared to the other techniques is that we make no attempt to hide the spatial manipulation from the user. But a pilot study suggests that users are not bothered by it. The basic idea of the technique is illustrated here. The virtual space is divided into rooms connected by portals. The diagram on the left shows a plan view of the 5 rooms used in the pilot study. From the lower right corner of room A, for example, you could see through the portal to room B and travel there by simply walking through the portal. You're then in room B, which overlaps the physical space of room A. Any number of rooms can be folded into the same physical space in this manner. The concept was prototyped with Unity and the Oculus Quest. Here's a view of the actual test layout used in the pilot study from Unity's scene view. The environment is suggestive of a science fiction spaceship with a cockpit at one end and aft room at the other, each with a window onto an animated starfield. In between are 2 cargo rooms, distinguished by the shape and color of the cargo, and a midship room, which is the only room in this layout with 3 doors. The rooms are separated in edit mode, but at runtime, they're shifted so that they all occupy the same space, and they're hidden until they're needed. Scripts make sure that at most 2 rooms are active at any time, the one you're in and the one you can see through a portal. Unfortunately, no off-the-shelf portal solution worked well enough for this project, so I ended up creating a portal solution based on a custom shader. The shader allows you to render or not render all geometry within a frustum defined by the portal and the camera position. Each room is made out of a different material, all using the same shader. Then the script associated with each portal configures the local and remote materials as the player moves around. This illustration shows how 2 rooms, tinted red and yellow, occupy the same space, but each is rendered only according to what should be visible. The camera view in the lower right corner shows what this would look like to the user. Here you can see a demonstration of the system in action. The external physical world view is at upper left, while the user's view of the virtual space is at lower right. You can see that within the virtual environment, the subject seems to be walking around a large multi-room space, even though in the physical world, he's simply walking in circuitous paths. I did a pilot study with the following protocol. A subject was first introduced to the Quest headset and controllers, and helped in adjusting the headset for proper fit. They were then instructed to observe the label floating over the left controller, which corresponds to the label on a round cabinet in one of the 5 rooms. Subjects were asked to find that room and touch the target, a bouncing yellow star, with either controller. When they do that, the star disappears and reappears in another room, and the floating label above their left controller updates accordingly. Subjects were given an exploration period in which they were asked to find a star in each of the 5 rooms. Then we started a 5-minute trial period in which they continued performing that same task, with the order of rooms randomized after each 5 stars. After 5 minutes were up, subjects were helped out of the VR gear, then asked to fill out an exit survey as well as the NASA TLX, and given an opportunity to add any free-form comments. The Unity program also writes a CSV file that logs the position and orientation of the headset every 1/10 of a second, along with important events like the collection of a target star. These files can later be pulled off the device and then analyzed or visualized with a separate program as shown at bottom right. While I didn't do much with it in this pilot study, this sort of data would allow us to calculate how far users travel, how directly they reach a goal, and so on. The results of the 7 Likert scale questions are shown here. Positive statements are grouped at the top and negative statements at the bottom, although in the actual survey these were interleaved. You can see that there's strong overall agreement with the positive statements. All users agreed with, "I felt like I was in a much larger virtual space than the physical room I was in." And 4 out of 5 users also agreed that I was able to navigate the space without much trouble, and walking around in the virtual space felt very natural, with the other user in each case remaining neutral. On the statement, "After an initial learning period, I could confidently go wherever I wanted to go," 3 out of 5 users agreed, with 1 neutral and 1 disagreeing. On the negative statements, 4 out of 5 subjects disagreed with, "I would have preferred moving around with a joystick if it meant no strange doorways," with 1 subject neutral. On "It bothered me that some of the doorways behaved abnormally," 2 subjects disagreed, with the other 3 marking neutral. However, on "I found the layout of the virtual space confusing," 2 subjects agreed, 1 disagreed, and 2 were neutral. Now here's the raw data from the unweighted NASA Task Load Index survey, along with the median response for each scale. On each 20-point scale, a lower number is better, which means less demand or better performance. Again, in this pilot study, there wasn't much I could do with this, but in a larger study, we could compare the load between 2 conditions to see, for example, if folded space places a higher demand on the user. I also gathered free-form comments after the surveys were complete. Here are a few representative ones. On the whole, users expressed comfort with the manipulation, though several wished that they had a bit more time to learn their way around. Together with the Likert results, these suggest that users were on the whole not bothered by the impossible nature of the folded space, and every user seemed very pleased to be able to navigate the space by real walking. I should, of course, acknowledge the obvious limitations of this pilot study. It had only 5 subjects and no control condition, such as comparing to an unfolded virtual environment. Also, as all the subjects were friends or family, there's a risk of bias in their responses. These are things that could be corrected in a larger, properly controlled study. There were also some technical issues that would inform a larger study. I found it's important to be careful with the placement of the virtual environment within the physical space, or subjects might step off the mat, which is a jarring experience. Also, 1 subject had some trouble with the headset position. More care should be taken in adjusting the headset before starting the trial. 1 subject had glasses with bifocal lenses and found that text high in the visual field was blurry, so I'd recommend keeping text lower in the world wherever possible. Finally, my custom portal solution was workable but not ideal. It requires a lot of careful work getting everything to show and hide at the proper times, and there are performance issues that somewhat confounded the results. I hope that a better solution can be found that is easy to work with, provides smooth transitions, and maintains a high frame rate. Now I'd like to touch on the design implications of the space folding technique. First, it works best for indoor spaces where there are walls or other barriers to constrain the user, and doorways or arches to contain the portals. Second, you do need play area at least 2 by 3 meters in order to fit 3 portals. 3 is the minimum number needed for an interesting layout, for reasons I'll explain shortly. Finally, while the size of the virtual environment is in principle unlimited, walking around a very large space might get a bit tedious. But this can be mitigated by including shortcuts. You can directly connect any 2 rooms, or make something like an elevator, where the press of a button changes what room the portal connects to. In this way, even very large spaces could be conveniently navigated by walking. A bit of graph theory is helpful in understanding the design space for these layouts. In graph terms, each room is a node, and each edge is a portal. The order of the graph is the maximum number of portals in any room. If it's an order 2 graph, there are basically only 2 possible layouts, all rooms in a line or connected to form a loop. And this is true for any number of rooms. But at order 3, things get more interesting. There are exactly 3 4-node graphs of order 3 as shown here. So any layout with 4 rooms and at most 3 portals per room will be isomorphic to one of these. At 5 rooms, there are 8 possible room graphs. The layout used in the study is equivalent to this one. And of course, at 6 or more rooms, or higher orders, the number of possible graphs grows very quickly. But 3 is enough to offer a wide variety of interesting layouts, whereas 2 portals is not. That's why I consider 3 portals to be a minimum for practical use of this technique. And if each portal needs 2 square meters of space to give you room to walk on either side, that leads to the minimum area requirement of 6 square meters. To summarize, this project prototyped a new form of spatial compression, with significant advantages over previous approaches. It works with a physical space as small as 2 by 3 meters, which is compatible with most home room scale setups. And yet it allows for an unlimited amount of virtual space, which users can navigate by real walking. Finally, our pilot study suggests that users actually like it. For these reasons, I expect Space Folding will find use in a wide variety of VR applications.